The scene was set with one word. The time is after Jesus' resurrection, when love has already proven itself truest and strongest, but other forces are still at work. That's what Luke is telling us in this one word. He says, meanwhile. It's the first word of Acts chapter 9, and here's how that drama opens. Meanwhile, Saul was still spewing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. Into this new era of time, right in the middle of the full revelation of God, in a time of revelation and huge upending change, as the way of Jesus is made vividly real by its very first followers, violence and threats and danger are also still very real. Love may be the deepest force there is, but force isn't only ever used for good. And the biggest threats to a people group often come from within that same group. This is the meanwhile into which Luke writes, Saul went to the high priest, seeking letters to the synagogues in Damascus. If he found persons there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, these letters would authorize Saul to take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. During the journey, as he approached Damascus, suddenly a bright light from heaven encircled him. Saul, we need to know, is a man sold out to God. He is a passionate practitioner and protector of his faith. It's the one faith, you understand, the one that Jesus was born into and maintained his whole life, because there is no Christianity yet. There is only Judaism in its varied forms and expressions, and the way of Jesus is one such expression of Judaism. Saul is, you might already know this, the very same man who will one day be called Paul. He is the apostle, the writer of letters that will make up almost a quarter of the New Testament. But for now, he's not referred to that way. He is not yet Paul. He's Saul, simply another defender of the true faith, trying to do the right thing in order to refine and strengthen his people, the people of God. That's Saul's assessment of himself when his path is blocked by a light so bright he can't see the next step in front of him. He fell to the ground and he heard a voice asking him, Saul, Saul, why are you harassing me? Saul asked, who are you, Lord? I am Jesus, whom you are harassing, came the reply. Now get up and enter the city. You will be told what you must do. Those traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They had heard the voice, but saw no one. Who are you, Lord? Because Saul recognized something supernatural and very divine was going on in that light, but he couldn't yet place what or why. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. And so the actual voice of Jesus speaks into a meanwhile of threat and violence and coercive control of people inside the circle and clearly outside the circle. Jesus speaks, and Jesus identifies with the outsiders. It's not you are harassing them, it's you are hurting me. You are harassing and persecuting me, Jesus says. Jesus expresses solidarity with the very people Saul had already written off, the ones he targeted as weak spots or threats to his people group. And Jesus has to not so gently remind Saul that they are him. Jesus has to make Saul see the divine in them. And what a deep, sharp pain that must have been right then to Saul's heart. Because remember, the way he tells the story, he's the good guy. He thinks he's doing the right thing. So the first shock that comes is this blinding light, but the second shock really had to be the accusation of persecution. Who, me? I am a harasser? That is not the story that Saul's been telling himself. And And how very strange and ironic that on his way to correct and cut out dissent, Saul was called to identify with the dissenters. The next part of the story is probably the best known, and I bet a lot of you know it probably better than I. The companions lift Saul up from where he's fallen onto the ground, and he discovers he can't see. So they lead him into the city. I thought that was appropriate, image-wise. They lead him into the city where he was headed, Damascus, and he stays there in that city blind, completely blinded in his own world, not eating or drinking for 3 straight days. While Saul is in this state of different reality, God prepares someone else to help out. The someone else is named Ananias. He was already a disciple of Jesus, already a deep believer in the way. And so maybe, possibly, it was less jarring to Ananias when the Lord speaks to him in a vision. I'm not sure it can ever be less jarring, but maybe so. He was told exactly where to go, which house to enter, who to look for, a man from Tarsus named Saul. Then Ananias was told, this man is currently praying, and he's having a vision of you by name. He's seeing how you will come and heal him. And Ananias was not so sure. Ananias countered this vision. Lord, I have heard many reports about this man. People say he has done horrible things to your holy people in Jerusalem. He's here with authority from the chief priests to arrest everyone who calls on your name. The Lord replied, go. This man is my agent, the agent I have chosen to carry my name before Gentiles, kings, and Israelites. We do understand, don't we, that Ananias is not excited to go confess to the prosecutor, that he is not eager to show up at ICE headquarters and declare his immigrant status. Like, none of that sounds very wise because Saul is out to get people just like him. So it's a testament to how firmly Ananias is already entrenched in this new Jesus way that he goes. He goes to the place he's directed. Now, he did have the benefit of a pretty firm message, but he believes Jesus when Jesus says of Saul, that one's mine too. You two are actually on the same side. Ananias places his hands on Saul and says, and the first word kind of breaks me, brother. Brother, the Lord has sent me. The same Jesus who appeared to you along the way sent me so that you could see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And before Saul could even consent to this action, we pick up at verse 18. Instantly, flakes fell from Saul's eyes and he could see again. He got up and was baptized. After eating, he regained his strength. He stayed with the disciples in Damascus for several days. Right away, he began to preach about Jesus in the synagogues. He is God's son, Saul declared. Everyone who heard him was baffled. One of my favorite sentences. They questioned each other, isn't this the one who was wreaking havoc among those in Jerusalem who called on the same name? Hadn't he come here to take those same people as prisoners to the chief priests? But Saul grew stronger and stronger. He confused the Jews who lived in Damascus by proving that Jesus is Christ. I think it's worth asking, Saul grew stronger and stronger. How again? Because he seemed pretty strong before. Saul had the ear of the chief priest and the power to seize anyone he found to be a bad Jew, anyone he deemed to be a bad Jew. He had certainty on his side before the road to Damascus. He had the single-mindedness of a person on a mission to restore and remake his society just the way he believed it should be. So where did this new strength come from? I think we have to say it's the strength of love. When Saul starts to see again, he sees wider than ever before. even if it does take him a bit to grow into his custom vision. Saul comes to see people that he had believed to be his enemies as his brothers, because that's how they treated him. He finds his changed self in this repentant, accountable, new commitment to a whole different set of people. Still doing God's own work, but far beyond the group of God's people he first identified with. Saul is the classic example, I think, of a devout person who's so convinced of their cause, they just are blinded, literally blinded to the destructive consequences of their actions. They're doing what they think is right. But unlike most people, and to the complete bafflement of the people watching, totally against type, Saul changes. I have thought a lot about how to best sum up the change that we see in this passage. I admit, I freely confess, it's huge, but I've started to doubt it's as instant as we've been taught to believe. I've started to wonder if the word conversion is even the right word. Maybe what's going on here is much more immediate and more approachable than that. I mean, I know, the whole church calls it the conversion story of Paul, but at this point in time, remember, there is no Paul. There's just Saul, who will still be called Saul for years to come, because he's got a lot of work ahead to gain the original disciples' trust. As he proves himself not a threat, as he moves deeper into this new group of people he's found, then I think conversion happens. I think here, Saul hasn't changed to a new religion all of a sudden. He's still a Jew, only in another way. He's been shown a different worldview that included Jesus as fulfillment and not dangerous faction. But let it be said, if you can take this in, I don't think Paul chose a different side in Damascus. I think he was for God before he set off down that road, and I think he told himself he was for God after he got there. I think he maintained a position as for God his whole life long. But in the middle, he had to change his mind. I don't think it was a shift that changed his side or even changed his plan A, because Saul's plan A had been proclaiming God and feeding the faith. But this sudden enlightening change of mind made everything else good happen for him. It made real all the things he set out to do originally, just because, I would say, he was able to change his mind. After that, as he lived differently into this new belief that maybe we shouldn't persecute and torture and imprison followers of the way, as he embraced this wider group of people that could just maybe be his people too, as his understanding continued to grow and evolve, as his value to the way grew, as he leaned into the very deepest call of his life, then I would say a complete conversion happened in Saul, who became Paul. But first, it was just simply a change of mind. First, Saul had to change his mind about a certain group of people. That's what seems most meaningful to me today, and maybe most relevant to us today. We don't have to switch sides, but we may have to change our minds. We probably have to change our minds about some group of people. Saul's mind and heart opened to this group that he could suddenly see as also on God's side. And that seems to be the work we're up against all the time. We haven't been doing it wrong because we need to change. We've been human, and so we need to change. All of us carry convictions that get embedded deep in us from the start, from our earliest training and exposure to religion. And certain things just stick. They land really deep, they lodge, and sometimes they block what God would then show us that's not that way. Our convictions can feel so righteous, but they can also limit us when they cause us to cut off other people or to persecute people. It's just a truth that we human beings tend to narrow down rather than expand God's mission in the world. We all do it because we're human. That's why there's always more to see. We don't need a lot of blame and judgment. We don't need any shame for who we've been. We just need to know that it's so easy to miss the new thing God is doing in the world. And the good news is, the way to avoid that, all it may take is to change our mind about one group of people. I would say we definitely live in a meanwhile, maybe in the very same meanwhile that Luke describes in Acts 9. Love has already proven itself, bigger than anything in love's way. And also, threats of violence, control, and power over, strength of the abusive kind, all of that is still the order of the day. Both realities exist. It seems to me that in that, we get to choose. And we're not choosing which or whose side do we want to be on, because the more we think about it, maybe there are no sides with God. But we do get to choose which force we feed. We do get to consider what might be blinding us and what former adversary can we let heal us. The work is worth it so that all of us can belong to God. As different as we are, all belong. And finding the insight that will lead us deeper into Jesus' way might just be as easy as seeing one new and different person as God's own person. Wherever you find yourself out in the world this next week, in whatever groups you sit and sup and converse with, may the force of love be in you and with you and moving through you into the world. Amen.